Good morning, everyone. How are you? Wherever you are. And it's morning here on the East Coast of the United States. It's nighttime in China and Hong Kong, where Charles Caldwell is, and he is our panel moderator today. This is Mind Over Matter Mondays, and this is our third transformational panel. And we're excited to have 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝐻 also with us. And our former attendee, Susan Walsh, couldn't be with us today. We are people who, who have been through a very unique transformational technology, which began as a thing called EST, E-S-T, in the 60s by a guy named Werner Erhard. And when in 1996 is when I first did their introductory weekend intensive. And let me tell you, earth shattering, mind blowing, bubble bursting. I mean, really, going back and finding the originating incidents that have upset you all your life, quite a weekend. And so Charles also has done this much further than I, in that he headed up in Toronto, Canada, worked at the center there and did almost every single possible teaching spot that you could have. So he is really proficient. I've done the whole program. Deb has done that program and more. So we're going to introduce some things that they're just different ways of looking at what transformation is. Charles will take the lead, and let me just say hello to all of you briefly, because we want to get going. We want to be finished right at noon, so you can all go visit Sean Michael. You'll notice the banner honors our two sponsors, the 2350 Network and also Power Thinking Corporation, now with a brand new app for personal development. So, hey, Jackie Hallberg, very exciting tonight, a guest. Jackie does a live every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, live, and she has something very special she's going to share tonight. I recommend that you tune in at 9 because Jackie is on a journey, and I think it's okay to say here that she will be interviewing the man to whom she is offering one of her kidneys next week, I believe it is, if all goes well. So we're all jazzed for you, Jackie, and so exciting. And there's 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝐻 sneaking in here, even though she's in the studio, waving at me right now. And there's, hey, Karen, so glad you could be here, and so glad that you're here to support Deb and all of us. And there's Kelly Steinecke. She's a marketing master. And I'm so glad that she's back on LinkedIn. We'll have to catch up and talk soon because you've been gone a long time, but it's so good to see your pink bubble behind you again. Dr. Marcia is here. Dr. Marcia is an executive leadership coach. She's a Christian coach. She is a best-selling author, international author. And my intention is that one day she will return to weekly live teachings. She's an amazing teacher. Thank you for being here, Dr. Marcia. Leanna is here. Leanna, hi. I sent you a DM based on a conversation we had last week. Leanna is in Duluth, Minnesota, and keeps us busy while she is a dietitian, a registered dietitian, and is involved with diabetes care. She has a love of taking gorgeous pictures and posting them also on LinkedIn, which keeps us really balanced. And I love that. And there's Adrian. Hi, Adrian Gergich. Adrian is up in New England. So good to see you. Felipe Cofino is here. And I see a lot of people here because of you, Charles. I see that you have guys that like you, especially, which is fine, which is absolutely fine, because you guys that have studied with me and been listening to what I teach, you're going to hear it in this, but from a different angle. So part of what we do here on Mind Over Matter Mondays is bring in similar concepts from different points of view. So, and we're all growing in awareness, conscious awareness every day of our infinite potential. We're either growing or we're sitting on the couch. But as we continue to learn, we get light bulb moments. We begin to realize that we can do things that we didn't know how to do before. We go from confusion, if we stick with it, to that moment when all of a sudden it all makes sense, and you can then have a practical application to effect changes, to create new ways of thinking that stick. 𝗵𝗫𝐾𝐬 is here. So glad to see you, 𝗵𝗫𝐻. He's a top voice, a big listener, a teacher. He's in HR. He's a business coach, and he's also an international best-selling author. William Rochelle is here. Hi, William. I'll just have to have Charles here then. That's all I have to do. Charles, you just have to be my co-host so I can get these guys to come visit, right? I know that you come when you can. That's the most important thing. William, so good to see you. I hope today floats your boat. Meryl Cass is here. Meryl is the big support behind the weekly carousel that lists by day in a video carousel of all the live events, a lot of live events in this community. So there's plenty to do. There's over 40 events every week. So you can go wherever you want to learn, but you can also learn right here. Meryl is here from Paramus, New Jersey. So glad that you're here. I hope it cools down for you. We have had blazing heat in North Carolina. And there's Linda Meyer. Linda is a guest teacher. We have a pool of about 25 guest teachers, and they each pick a Monday. And we get together for about an hour in almost every case except the one for today, because this is Charles. He knows all about this stuff. I'm going to let him lead this, absolutely. And Linda will be our guest next Monday. And her specialty is narcissism. Oh, gosh, I wish I had met her 40 years ago. But I'm glad I met you now, Linda. And Shuka is here. Hello. So good to see you. And Charles is welcoming everybody. You're welcome, Jackie. Really, Jackie, I hope it was okay that I mentioned it. We're just all so proud of you, and you're just an amazing individual. We're all amazing if you think about it. I mean, come on, 𝗵𝗫𝐻 is an HR professional, and he's a business coach. And what? He writes a children's book that's an international bestseller that's now in 2 languages, and he's got the next one coming. Look at the balance of the people in this room. They are very versatile, planting lots of seeds. Yeah, Leanna is here. There we go. Christy D. Williams is here. Hi, Christy. Christy's part of the 2350 network, and she's a phenomenal support. Christy is always there, always learning, and she's dabbling into video herself now. So let's all support her when she does that, okay? Thank you. Christine Feedy likes my hair. You can see I'm going gray, and oh my gosh, you know, it's just what it is right now. I've given up all the other personas and identities. You guys get me. And if you've noticed I haven't been singing on Mondays, it's because I realized, hey, I sing on Fridays, right, for Think and Grow Rich. But the truth is here, this is all about the guest teachers. It's not about me. And my voice is getting tired, and you've heard me sing zillions of times. So we're going to use that time to create for you. And Christine Feedy, how are you? She's an amazing human being. Oh my gosh. I could tell you stories about her. And then there's Nicole Angay Galindo. She is a sponsor of my Friday show, our Friday show. She is a publisher. Just this last week did her 9th anthology, which is a book with 13 authors in it, of which I'm proud to say I'm one. And many people just started their writing career, right? Just took the step with this last particular book that Nick published called We Are More Than Our Diagnoses, meaning basically that we all have diagnoses. Some are more severe, debilitating, and looked on or have stigmas. And she's erasing the stigma with this book. And so I'm very excited to be part of it. And there's lots more coming this year. There's a men, money, and mental health one coming up. So if you're a man, right, this would be a great chance for you to become a best-selling author, a #1 best-selling author. So I'm glad you're here. Jason Forehand is here. He's one of the, has a nonprofit called TK Kitchen. We've done a lot of work with publishing for him with his new cookbook. Congratulations. And let me just get on down here because we've just been into this. Lisa Fevick is here. Hey, Lisa just won an award. Check out her profile every other Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. She heads a panel on the metamorphosis dialogues, everything that you want to know about you in menopause or your partner experiencing it. All right, let me just make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, so as we're getting ready, I'm going to bring up our good. Okay, Shawn Michael is here. Yay. Right after this, you guys jump over to Coach Shawn Michael's live, right? He's on at noon. Sometimes we come in just a little bit late. Thank you for all the comments, everybody. Be sure to ask any questions. Get ready to consider everything. Oh, Leigh Scheidel is here. Hi, Leigh. So glad that you're here. Okay, so I'm going to bring up, let me just switch the setting here. I think this is the one. Uh-oh. No, that's not the one. Hold on a second. It's the 5. Oh, shoot. Well, I thought I saved it. Anyway, yeah, we'll go with this one. This is fine. Let me move you over here. I think I can do this. No, I'm not allowed to change these things. Oh my God. I thought that I fixed this one. So let me just fix it really quick, you guys. All right, I did. I took this out. And I moved Deb over here. Yes. Then I moved this here. Perfect. Okay, so let me save it. Okay. Yay! Oh God, you guys.
I feel like I'm in the Brady Bunch. Here's a story.
All right, so here we are. Here we are. And I thought actually I had you guys bigger. Let me just see. I can do that. I can make you guys bigger. Me bigger. Oh my God, it's crazy. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is what happens when you we're doing our best here. Right? Damned if I know how to do these things exactly right. There we go. All right, so you can see that Charles he's in charge. Let me see if I can move him up over there. Charles in charge. All right.
Hello, everybody.
So welcome, Charles. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Deb, take over. We're going to start here, and I want to make sure we can see everybody. Perfect. So, let's bring this up since I've got this screen up there. Okay, there we go. Take it away, Charles. Everybody, this is Charles and Deb, and Charles is going to introduce himself. I know, as I told you a little bit about Charles, and Deb has done the work in Landmark, which is also started as EST, also broke off into Legacy, LifeSpring. These were all sort of arteries when the Landmark Forum was really big, and it is still big in many areas in the world. And they know a lot about this. So Charles, take it away. Tell us about yourself and what we're going to do today. Then we'll hear from Deb, and then we'll bring up the outline, and off we'll go.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leslie. It's great to be back here today. Thank you for having me. And we're going to jump into it right away, but I just want to stop for a moment and thank you for all that you contribute to the community. And I know I might sound like a broken record, but it really, really is true. Like you're constantly innovating, you're constantly thinking of new ways that you can promote the community. You're encouraging all of us with our LinkedIn Lives. You're encouraging people who are doing LinkedIn Lives to start LinkedIn Lives, and then you're encouraging the community to support those people. And just, you're so tenacious about it. And I want to thank you on behalf of everybody who's listening and those who aren't listening. And, and I wish I could get the heart going the way Deb is. I got to figure that out later. I'm more of a Restream guy, not a StreamYard guy. That's great. So thank you, Leslie, for that. So yes, I'm calling in from Hong Kong. And I have a long career in corporate HR. I have been living in Hong Kong for 30 years. I celebrated 30 years in Hong Kong on June 1st. So a big thank you to those who are in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's been very good to me and to my family and my wife, Tess and I, with 4 amazing kids. About a year ago, I left corporate and started my own thing. My DNA in human resources and leadership development and in coaching, which are all things near and dear to me. And that's why one of the reasons when I went into Landmark is I just soaked it up like a sponge, just so hungry and craving the water of transformation. And so I went into learning and development and then a long career in corporate HR and have gone back, returned to my passion. I'm currently doing executive coaching, leadership advisory, a lot of HR consulting, leadership enhancements or interventions, depending on where a leadership team is at. And that's a little bit about me. So before we go on, I think we should let Deb introduce herself. Deb, tell us a little bit about your background.
Hey everyone, my name is 𝗃𝗃𝗧, and those of you who know me on LinkedIn, you know my story. I was corporate for forever, got laid off, and I've been in a kind of transformative period myself, learning to be a business owner and building a business, etc. I first was introduced to Landmark back in 2001, I think. My friends had attended, and I was so blown away by the difference in how they just related and how they moved through the world. And I was like, I don't know what y'all did, but I want to do it too, because it made such a huge difference. And like Charles, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I was very deeply into it for years and years and years, did a lot of training with it. And I still occasionally will take a seminar or something else that really, attracts me to it. And the last one was on creativity, which, hey, yeah. So yeah, and I'm passionate about the tools that you learn through this work, and I would love to share them with you because they've been huge in my life.
Excellent.
You know, creativity, Deb, was one of the hardest seminars I led at Landmark. It was, because so much of Landmark is about creating something from nothing, and with creativity, you had to create something from nothing, from nothing, from nothing. Really something from nothing, from nothing.
Charles.
Yes.
Your audio is choppy, so if you could. No, don't worry so much. Just slow the pace of your speaking should make it work. And look, Meryl says we're all broken records in positive recognition and internal gratitude. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize what I was reading. Thank you. And Meryl is my partner in crime, I have to admit. So, okay. So after interrupting that, Charles.
That's okay. Well, I'm going to slow down like Fonzie and Meryl. You're right. Leslie is exactly what you say. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? What we're going to talk, we're going to really deepen the distinction of listening. That's a frame of reference for anybody who's been here before.
Listening, right?
Listening.
Listening. Okay, good.
Listening. Yeah. And what I want, a lot of people believe that they know how to communicate. We all do communication courses through professional development throughout our careers, throughout our lives. Even now in university programs, big emphasis on creativity and communication. But I want to invite people today to consider that they actually don't know how to communicate. So just try it on for a moment, because we're going to take a new cut and a new way of looking at communication today. And I want you to listen from there just for the next 40 minutes as we power through our discussion today. And one of the things that happened.
Hang on one second. Let's double check. Can everybody? How is the audio? Did it improve? Do we need to do anything with the audio? Because you're the leader, so I want to make sure. Christine Queen Feedy said that it was still rough. So you guys let us know if the audio has improved at all. Okay, keep going.
Okay. So one of the things that one of the programs I did in Landmark was called the Commando Communication course, which was sort of very similar to the 6th day. If people did the 6th day, and the 6th day was replaced by the advanced course in order to be more inclusive, because some people were unable to do the challenging physical aspect of the 6th day. So I did the Commando Communication course, and a person who's operating as a commando communicator is operating behind enemy lines. And the question is, who is the enemy? And we're going to see that today. And once you see and realize who the enemy is, communication really starts to open up in a very different way. And at the foundation of all this is something very simple, and that is the way we listen shapes everything in communication. And when we are able to alter the way that we listen, really things change significantly. Now, Deb, I don't know if you want to contribute something to that, because you shared something at the when we were sort of back studio in the green room, I guess you could say, around that exact kind of listening transformation. Do you want to offer something in there about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Deb.
Okay. Yeah. So listening, you create people with the way that you listen to them. If you do not trust someone, the way that you listen to them is exactly how you're creating them in the world. And the way that we listen directly affects how effective we can be in talking to other people. And if you are someone who doesn't listen, who simply just lets things flow over them and then just reacts, you're going to find that the relationships in your life are going to be consistent with that. So basically my thing is, look at anywhere area in your life where you feel like there's something lacking in a relationship with someone, and usually you can tie it back to how you're listening to them. That's my assertion.
Yeah, that's a great point. Leslie, did you want to say something as well?
Well,
or should I keep going?
Well, I could say something small. So
nothing you say is ever small, Leslie.
Oh, thank you. So, well, while we've been working together for several years, all of us, and learning and growing, the listening depends on the filters and your views, which are established through repetition and are very powerful. So what you're going to hear, you'll hear some commonality between what you already know for what we have discussed, and it'll be new to you because you're at a higher level of awareness than you were the first time we discussed this or the first time you heard it. So we know that our fears are experiences, and they are very powerful. And you're going to hear about this conversation about the enemy, and I'd like you to consider adding to it what you know about the expression and our reactions, right, that are fearful, as opposed to our responses, which we're doing right now, which is objective. What do you think, Charles? Is that a fair?
I think that's actually a great segue, because one of the things that people often think about is that, you know, there's a deeply held belief or myth or assumption that some conversations are dangerous. And in reality, communication does not kill us. And yet we often think that if we're going to communicate something to people, that it's going to end up poorly. And as a result, people often hold back, and people avoid saying things that need to be said, and they stay silent when something actually matters and they need to say something. And when we're talking about the filters, I want people to consider that there's something actually sitting behind the filter that might be reinforcing the filters and keeping the filters going. And that's like a listening parasite. And that is, the listening parasite is what prevents people from communicating. And it doesn't want to be discovered. Communication isn't harmful, it isn't but it's where the cost comes up, which is that lack of joy, the lack of love, the lack of trust. That's what you lose. You lose that trust, you lose the joy when you have those strained relationships that Deb talked about. And the parasite reveals the enemy. And it's literally like a listening parasite that sits in these filters. It's an internal mechanism. You could look at it as a filter that's so strong and so powerful that it shapes how you see and hear everything. And very similar to what Deb was describing. And that
so we're still having trouble with the audio, just so you know that it's muffled and tinny.
Okay. Yeah. Muffled and tinny. Okay. I will continue to speak slowly. Everything's shut down here on my end to get maximum bandwidth. Yeah. And if I was to give you an example of this. It's the listening parasite that once you're able to distinguish it, actually reveals the enemy. So if you can imagine that you might have a filter of, well, I don't trust a certain individual, or I am skeptical of a certain situation, and we very, very quickly label individuals that they are in a certain way, and that they operate and will react to us in a certain way. And that causes us to react to them. And to your point, Leslie, about fear, I think, yes, there is fear associated to that, with that, because what people do is they conjure up images of what they fantasize or catastrophize how they think a communication or conversation will turn out, and then they say that they don't communicate because of that. So I want people to consider that actually it's that listening parasite that's behind the filter, in the background, underneath the water. It lives in what we don't know that we don't know. And that listening parasite does not want to get discovered. It causes us to interpret, to judge, to assess people, and to reinforce the patterns that we have in our life. Now the access to this, because then we can start getting on into some personal examples of how this applies. When I did the Command of Communication course, we were in the middle of British Columbia at a residential conference retreat center, and we were next to this incredible lake. And when they talked to us about how quiet they wanted the way we listen to people to be, they invited us to go down and sit next to the lake and just listen to how still it was. And even sitting next to the ocean is too noisy, because there will always be a little, even if it's a very still day, there'll be lapping waves, and there'll be the tide trying to come in, trying to come out, as quiet as it is. So they wanted us to sit next to this lake. And if you imagine yourself sitting next to a lake at a cottage or a lake house, it's super, super, super still. And maybe in the background, you'll hear some thoughts that are pulling you under, or saying something negative, or preventing you from having that conversation that Deb was talking to you about. And those thoughts, it's either the filter or it's the listening parasite sitting behind the filter. It's trying to tell you to not do something, and to to stay in your comfort zone, to not pursue a goal that you really want to, like writing a book about being our own diagnosis. You know, it stops us and it keeps us comfortable. And it is the enemy that prevents us from communicating. And when I was reviewing my notes from the Commander course, and I have them here, and I found literally it was 1992 that I did this program, although the distinctions and the concepts are very much alive in Landmark's work today. I was taken back to that lake, and how still they trained us in those 6 days to slow down our listening, to really be able to listen to people. But the enemy that I distinguished was, and this was the title, the black hole of transformation, warning, the black hole of transformation. So I'm actually going to tell one on myself right now. What I distinguished that week was that the enemy, that listening parasite that I had, I'm making it sound so serious now, but everyone's going to laugh when I give the simple analogy. That's the easiest way to relate to it. That the label warning black hole of transformation was my enemy. And the two ways I can describe that. As an executive coach, it's very easy for someone who comes in to see me that might be early to mid-career, and meanwhile I've got 30 years of HR experience, you know, like amazing gold medals in HR, lots of awards, built companies at incredible speeds in Asia. And very easy for me to listen to someone as a coach and to think that I know the answer to their problems. And if I'm not careful, that listening parasite stops me from listening and starts me talking. And it would be okay for me to talk 10 or 15% of the time as a coach. But if I'm talking any more than that, then the black hole of transformation takes over and it sucks people into the vortex. And what I've noticed lately is that the world has come up with a label. And Deb laughed earlier. The label is mansplaining. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry, but I have to use it because it's just such a simple label, mansplaining. And that is, you know, those two, like as a coach, you're kind of trained to listen to speak 10 to 15% of the time and listen 80%, 85% of the time. If you're doing more than that, then if I'm doing that, then I'm slipping into the dark black hole of transformation, which is a warning to everybody around me. It's not so much a warning to me, it's a warning to others. And yet, and at the same time, if I am get into some big explanation about some documentary I've watched or an article I've read that's excited me and I want to tell everybody about it, then I slip into mansplaining. I'm going to stop there and I'm going to give Deb or Leslie a chance to speak, or the black hole of transformation is going to take over.
I love it. Yeah, Charles, it's so awesome. I love you. And, you know, as a coach, you probably encounter it more than the rest of us do in a regular day. However, the listening literally makes your life better or not. When people meet me and they get on a call with me, one of the first things they tell me is, Deb, I love your energy. I just love your energy. And what they're seeing is my listening for them, because I am listening for who they are as a human being. I'm not listening for a perception of what their title is or who they are to other people or anything. I am listening for them to be the human that they are. And that's the space that I create with my listening. And so I loved how Charles was talking about that, about the space that he as a coach will create. And really intentional listening from me comes with actually giving things up. So a lot of times before I go into a conversation with someone, or I go into something that I feel like it could be a high pressure kind of situation, I stop and I think, okay, what do I need to give up in this moment? How can I create that clearing for this affinity, this communication? Because really, y'all, when you think about it, communication is love. We don't want to say that because that sounds a little too hokey, but really every communication is some sort of relatedness, some sort of love. And so I'm like, well, what do I need to give up? What's in my head right now? And I'll think, oh, I'm worried. I'm worried that what I'm going to say is going to come out a certain way. So I'm going to give up that I'm worried about that. I'm giving up that this person is a certain way, like that this person isn't going to listen to me, like someone who has something valid. I'm going to give that up too. And so intentionally giving up things creates that clearing where communication can show up, where people can be themselves, where people can share that part of themselves, where you can be related to them. And sometimes it requires being really, really generous. I mean, there are times if someone comes into a conversation and they're upset, it can be really hard. But you'll find that most times upset disappears when someone feels listened to. And we don't do enough of that. We don't do enough of listening to other people. And there's a generosity that comes with that. You know, once again, giving up that it means anything about me, whatever they're saying. You know, in that moment, they may be saying, you're blah, 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 blah. You know, and you just like, okay, that's their communication. I'm just going to keep that clearing where they can just say what they need to say. And I'm going to listen to it very generously. I don't know if that's helpful or not. I do know that I had shared on one of our previous calls around, I had a listening for my mom back when she was alive, that she only ever talked about herself and all of her pain and her ailments and everything. And so every conversation I'd get on the call with her and she'd be like, blah, 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 and just go off and off and off and never ask me anything about myself. And so I basically was just this person who would listen to my mom complain. That was what my listening for my mom was. Well, after taking one of my communication courses, I think it was a training or it could have been a coaching call. I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to mom differently this time. I'm going to listen to her from the space of, this is my mom. She loves me. And I kid you not, one of the first things out of her mouth was, Debbie, how are you doing today? Like, and I swear to you, like, if you would have asked me about every call before that, she never would have asked me that. But this time when I actually intentionally came in with this listening of like, I'm going to listen to my mother differently this time, it's exactly how she showed up. I was like, is this magic or something? And it just shows that communication is only effective when both humans are bringing themselves to that. Both humans are actively bringing something. There's someone who is actively speaking and there's someone who's actively listening. All right, I'm going to stop talking because I could keep going on and on. But Charles, I don't know if you want to take it from there. Leslie, what would you like to say?
Well, I have a question for you while you're thinking, Leslie. I have a question for you, Deb. And the question is, did you notice a stillness in how you listened to your mom before and after? And can you describe that to us, please?
Oh my gosh, when you can effectively create that clearing, like when you can take your enemy or that parasite, or when you can notice that parasite, because all of this, y'all, it isn't like a magical thing. It is literally just being aware. It's just being aware of, because most of us are just going around our life, just surviving, and we're not really paying attention to what's going on. And when I pause and I stop and I intentionally say, I'm listening now, and I'm actively bringing that listening, there's not only this calmness and this stillness, but there is incredible love. Like when you have two people that can fully express themselves to each other and can listen and can speak into that clearing of like, this is us communicating. This is us getting to know each other or just being ourselves, being accepted as ourselves. There is this amazing feeling of love and affinity for another human being. And I have that with people that I've only just met a lot of times, when there is that common space of both of us bringing ourselves to it, both of us being generous in our listening. That, you know, I don't think there's any other way you can replicate it. It's just brilliant.
Is anyone confused by what we're talking about and what's being articulated here? So I'm going to share something. I'm just curious if there's any confusion, because the terms such as listening for is not a normal something that we learn, right? Deb is laughing. And, you know, you can be listening for the greatness in others. And that's basically my philosophy, looking for, which for me is listening for the good bits about you. And I'm going to say that the parasite are your 6 basic fears. They're the expression of the fear of criticism, poverty, old age, ill health, loss of a loved one, and death. We re-experience those automatically from our subconscious mind. But what we're talking about here, since you only think one thought at a time, what we're actually doing is stepping away from those voices and into our higher side, which is not as strong. And so this, as simple as Deb puts it, oh, well, you know, this is awareness. Yes, you have to be able to practice. The practical application is catching it, right? That you are judging someone based on your own view. Now, coaches, for me, coaches ask a lot of questions. The way I learn coaching, it's not teaching, it's asking questions, knowing they already have the answers. Right? So my questions are leading you there. But I've often described being a coach as stepping into your world with no perception, with no views, that your coach can be your biggest proponent. No one will stand for you like your coach, who is objective, even more than your wife, your husband, your kids. The coach that is well practiced brings in sage understanding, but not their own. They're able to shut down the expression of their own personal fears, because we all still have them, but it's a conscious effort to go from reactive to responsive, from subjective, well, how does it look to me, to objective. And that also brings in empathy, because how could you be empathetic if you didn't get in the other person's world, if you're still over in yours? So really, you only have one thought at a time. The default is negative, especially when you go to do something you hadn't done before. This work is about taking that breath, choosing to be objective rather than subjective, choosing to be the higher side as often as you can. So I'll pass it back over to you, Charles. Oh, let's do a quick break. May we? May we do a short break here for our wonderful sponsors? All right, let's see. It's going to be a little smaller, but let's go ahead and see, and we'll come back to this. We have two fabulous sponsors. Oh my goodness, don't tell me that you can't hear it again. Oh my goodness. Well, okay, I'll figure out another way to do this. We're just going to go on to the next one, and then I'll bring up the video. This is our first sponsor, Power Thinking Corporation, with Stanley Green is the president and CEO of Power Thinking. And they now have a fabulous app where you can get daily chats. You can join his live streams every week, twice a day on Wednesdays, and pick it up at your app store. Very special pricing right now, 30-day free trial. All right. Oops, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go back. Here we go. So while you're doing this, okay. So Charles, I'm turning it back over to you so I can bring up in the studio. So please take it away, that sponsor video, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to mention a couple of things. You said a lot of gold there, so I want to mention a couple of them. A couple of things that you said. One of them, you said that higher self, the muscle, is weak. And the way that would parlay into the Commander Communication course is that our ability to operate behind enemy lines, our ability to notice that parasite behind the listening is weak. And the other aspect of that is once we get strong, we're able to literally kind of
Dr.
create ourselves and generate ourselves. Did we take another commercial break?
Leslie was trying to figure out what went wrong with it earlier. I think that's what she was doing.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you guys. Okay, so I'm not going to let this rattle me. Continue on. Go back and start that sentence again, and I'll bring in the commercial in just a minute. Go ahead.
What was my last sentence, Deb?
It was around generating.
Yeah. Right. So you want to be able, if you're operating at that commando level, you're able to go in behind enemy lines and generate yourself, where most people would be stopping. Now, another great thing that you introduced, which you're right about, Leslie, is the concept of listening for. And that's not something that we normally get trained in or hear about in sort of everyday language. But the enemy, that listening parasite that wants to stop us, it wants us to not say things. It wants us to have the background of, things that don't work out to keep going. It wants things that are missing to stay missing. It wants things that should be next to not happen next. And it wants to make things hard and difficult and keep the place shut down and keep people in their comfort zone. So when you're listening for the skills that someone operating as a commando would be listening for They would be listening for, and I know that this parlays into PML with programs that you've done, yeah. You'd be listening for what's not being said. So if you can get that listening to be really quiet, then you would listen for, in the other person or in the situation, what's not being said. And that's not something that normally people listen for, what's not being said. And they will be listening for what's in the background, in myself and in the other person, to understand more of their reality and where they're coming from. They'll be listening for what's missing, and they'll be, one of the things I love is what wants to happen. And sometimes, you know, a very simple example of that would be sometimes my kids would spend as much time arguing about what movie they wanted to watch, that if they just picked a movie, they'd be halfway through the movie by the time they finished arguing about it. And sometimes, as I listened to them, they would all be wanting to watch the same movie. They were kids, like teens here, young teens at that point. They might all want to watch the same movie, but they wanted to be right about that they picked it first. And that might be what the argument is about. And I would step in and I would say, seems to me like what wants to happen here is make popcorn and watch Harry Potter quite quickly. And we, you know, things would move forward. Now, in a very complicated situation, when you're at work and you're having leadership conversations, you can apply the same kind of concept. You can listen to a team hashing it out, be very still, and then you listen for, well, what really wants to happen here? What should happen next? And one of the practices that when that dark black hole of transformation was taking me over, I remember I had a mentor and a manager at Landmark, and he would call me up and he would tell me, he would ask me for my one-on-one every other week, how are things going, what's happening? And I would spend the next 50 minutes telling him about all the amazing things that were happening in the region or in the Landmark Center. And I would leave the bad news for the end of the call. So we started a practice, what don't you want to tell me? And that is something that I even use today sometimes when I'm coaching people. They'll start off with, what don't you want to tell me? And this, in career conversations, that could turn into I love this question to ask people when you're mentoring or coaching people in a professional environment, is to ask them, what's the most important thing I need to know about you? And then you let them talk. So the first 50 minutes of that one-on-one with my manager was just the black hole of transformation, kind of throwing up in the space and giving him information that was meaningless. What he really wanted to know is, where do you stop, Charles? What's going to make a difference? What do you need to talk about? Let's start with that. And that's why he used to always ask me, what don't you want to tell me? And I used to start by saying, hey, let me start. Here's what I don't want to tell you. And he didn't even have to ask me after a while. But that helps us to start to see that the way we listen to people, that listening parasite doesn't want to get discovered. It wants to keep us in the comfort zone. It wants to have a lot of noise. It wants a motorboat to be roaring up and down that still lake so that you can't hear yourself think. And then you have to quieten down the way you think so that you get that stillness. So I've said a lot, I'll stop.
So
reactions.
I love the listening for, because I'm so used to the language that when you say listening for, I immediately am like, oh, well, what am I listening for right now? Am I listening for their greatness, or am I listening for a reason to not like them? You know, what am I listening for at this moment? You're going to laugh when I tell you this, Charles. So the what's missing thing, I use that in my AI all the time. When I'm chatting with my AI, I'm like, what's missing that if it were present would make this more valuable? What would make this more useful? And it's a great way to get those assumptions out of the way, or to distinguish any assumptions that you're bringing to any conversation that you're having with people as well. So I just, that made me laugh when the whole what's missing thing. I'm like, I got this one. The other one that I love is in listening, and Charles did it at the beginning of the session when he acknowledged Leslie, there is something that is just so lush and beautiful about being able to listen to people who they are rather than their complaints or the things from their past or whatever, and just be able to listen to them as a human being and then be able to acknowledge them for that. Like, developing that skill is worth anything else. And I can meet someone and within 5 minutes, I can acknowledge them for something that I see in them because I've created that space for them to show up just as themselves. And they're so astonished, but it's like, how did you know that about me? I'm like, that's who you are in my space. Like, I acknowledge you for being someone who cares deeply about the people around you. I mean, to me, it's just obvious that when I'm listening from that space, who you are as a human being shows up, regardless of what other, like, you know, what other stuff you're trying to tell me, you know, the other stuff is showing up, whether we realize it or not. And so, yeah.
You know, that was one of the hardest concepts for me, was when I heard this sentence, you guys, you know, out of confusion comes clarity. This one took a lot of time for me to wrap my arms around. Let's listen for what's missing, the presence of which would make a difference. Landmark had these phrases, and I first started in 96. Now, how many years has that been? 36 years or 26, right? What's missing, the presence of which would make a difference. And I'm thinking, what the F are you talking about? So I just want to say that they brought this into this conversation, and I spent years being confused by this. The one thing I can tell you is that when I was in the leadership program, part of one of the accountability calls I had to have every day on the way into work with my accountability partner, we get to work, park the car, and we would set, what are we listening for today? Are we listening to be a contribution? Are we listening for someone to contribute to us? Are we, what are we listening for? We set an intention. Then the next day when we would come back, we give ourselves a score from 1 to 10. How well did we do? And so many times we totally forgot to be listening for. So this practical application of listening for intentionally is like anything else. It's repetition is the first law of learning. You are building a muscle of invoking your higher side more rapidly and more frequently. Will you ever be perfect at it? No. It's an aspiration, and to take that parasite and to douse it with raid is going to require you're working on the other side, learning how to spray the raid, how to get the best raid, how quickly to do it, how long will the parasite live. And so if you look at it that way, you're working on the side to kill the parasite temporarily, to shut it down so you can think clearly. And I'll turn it back. Let me just do this quick promotion really quick, okay? It'll just take a second. 2350 Network, phenomenal group, a show, live telesummits in the spring and fall, great business network, and here they are.
And Dr. Tanya Farron here, co-founders.
Hold on.
It's Damien Kinsey here.
And Dr. Tanya Farron here, co-founders of the 2350 Network.
The 2350 Network is a place where professionals can gather.
2350 Network members meet to discuss leadership, attend Think Tank Thursdays, participate in book club, socialize, and connect with other professionals.
Our virtual interactive campus, just like the one you see here, is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for members.
So join us at the 2350 Network. To become a member, visit 2350network.com.
There we go. We've got a question here, and then we've got to get ready to close up. So I'm not sure who the LinkedIn user is, but where does one start the practice of learning to listen for? I mean, my response to that is you make a choice to listen for. That's the first step. Deb, Charles, let's answer this question, and then we'll say our goodbyes for today.
For me, I have to start it by grounding myself in right now. Because a lot of times we're like worrying about stuff from the past or thinking about things in the future, whatever. So for me, it starts from grounding myself in what's so right now. Where am I right now? Being present. Like my body is here in this chair and my awareness is here right now in this moment rather than, and once I'm in that space, then you can, as you said, Leslie, you can create an intention and you can say it. Our brains are they believe us, y'all. So you say, you know what? I'm going to listen for Charles's greatness right now. You say it to yourself, and your brain will start to do it for you. But to me, it really comes from grounding yourself in the present right now before you can actually do that.
Now, I would say it's your mind, not your brain, that does that, right? But it is the repetition. You're building faith in a new belief about your ability and deservability, because our current beliefs are reflections of what we've failed at, unfortunately, mostly. So we have to get back to succeeding more frequently so that we can get into that vibration and that energy. And this is why at every one of my shows, I acknowledge who you are for me. And I always look for the greatness. Now, look, sometimes I'm not so great, but if you've ever been on the other side of that with me, you know that I clean it up pretty damn quickly. Right. I've learned not to let things fester, that just be vulnerable, just take responsibility, and you're good to go. So let's finish up today. And Charles, tell us one thing that you didn't get to say that you would like to say. And I wonder if we shouldn't come back and do a round 2 of this conversation. Your thoughts?
Great idea. And one thing I would like to do is answer that question, what's a great place to start for listening for? A very practical place to start is to listen for the commitment behind people's complaint. You know, someone complains that the customer service is poor at a certain bank, wherever, at a Starbucks, whatever. And you acknowledge them and say, thank you for your commitment to excellent customer service. You know, now let's close the gap and figure out how to sort that out. Behind every complaint, there's a commitment. Join me Thursdays, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, or Thursday morning, Hong Kong time, on Horizon Network. Also, thought leaders talking about all great things. Last thing would be, very quickly, that long phrase, what's missing, blah, 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 is a little bit like the dark black hole of transformation, right? And people become insight junkies. And this happens in companies as they're rolling out AI or new systems or products. They have acronyms for everything. We need to keep it simple, folks. You know, get rid of your acronyms, or come up with a cheat sheet for your AI acronyms so that people understand what you're talking about. Okay, because everything else is just the enemy making things loud and noisy.
Just beautiful. Thank you, Charles, so much for this. And we're going to do this again, whether we'll if it's okay with you guys. And if you want, we really didn't get into this as much as, yeah. And let me know what points. There's a lot of excellent comments here. There's so much more in listening. Just the topic of listening alone can blow you away. This listening, we did the 5 days a week in the Introduction Leaders program, where we'd stop at every morning and grade ourselves and set an intention, what we're listening for. We did that. We only needed to do it for 3 months for the program. We did it for 2 years. We so loved that 15 minutes, right? What's your intention? What are you listening for? And then the next day, what happened? Oh, you won't believe what happened. I was listening for contribution and somebody showed up with the exact answer. You're only on one thought frequency at a time. When you're in that intention and in that vibration, you're actually attracting people in that same vibration directly to you. You don't have to understand exactly how it works, but you've seen it work. So that ought to be enough. Deb, take it away with your final wonderful words, my friend.
You know, I acknowledge you, Leslie, because you have such a passion for human beings and for people being understood and being clear. Charles, you have such a passion for leadership and for humans really realizing their greatness. I acknowledge both of you. I acknowledge every single person here for taking the time to listen, to be having that commitment to being a better human being in a world of human beings.
That's awesome. And thank you both for being here. Will you come back for another panel so we can get back into this? We'll see if everybody wants it. So everyone, I'm going to move Charles and Deb with great gratitude to both of you for running this show. And we will do this again in the next 30 to 40 days. I know we can get it on the calendar. So I'm going to move you back into the studio. Hang out for a minute if you can. And let me get myself, here we go. Let's do this. All right. So now, okay, next week we have, on next Monday, we have Linda Meyer, and Linda will be talking about narcissism. I'm so excited. This is her kickoff, right? Her first live, and she and I will work together for about an hour later this week and work through her first presentation. I do this with all the guest teachers so that we are on the same page and so that we can relate to one another's work and the work that we've all been learning. And so I'm excited to have Linda here next week. And then, of course, Friday at 11 a.m., we're going to get into the subconscious mind. And this is the deep, juicy work where those parasites live. So I'm going to relate the parasites to your fears so you could see how I was seeing this, right? And you're always looking to resonate with other concepts and kind of put everything together in a matrix, which is exactly what Charles did, which you haven't seen as he created a matrix. All right, my friends. And with that, please go visit Sean Michael. Okay. And I'm going to play the beautiful outro. Thanks to our sponsors, Power Thinking Corporation and 2350 Network. And you guys have a phenomenal week.